another thing that I have battled that has called and demanded me to regulate myself is understanding how I react to failed relationships. And it occurred to me after one of them that I don't need to let someone that I didn't know prior to us dating be the reason that I define myself as a failure. This makes no sense. Inherently makes no sense. Remaining calm in the face of adversity. That's how regulation looks on the exterior, but regulation actually is allowing yourself to feel emotions and then choosing to manage those emotions in real time. And that is a skill. That is a whole different set of things that you're learning to do. Because hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Amorous. I go by Amadine on my socials. And today, as you can tell by the title of the video, I want to talk about adults not regulating well. I want to talk about why most people don't regulate well. I have a lot of experience with this personally. In my upbringing, I had to really learn how to manage my emotions. I wouldn't say I had anger problems. I don't know what was wrong with me actually. Like nobody did. I didn't have any diagnosis. I wasn't in behavioral classes. I wasn't on medication. I was just all over the place and constantly in timeout, ISS and OSS. And I actually think part of that is because expressiveness gets miscommunicated as disruption, but it was never a matter of intellect or cognitive ability. It was just me, you know? And I'm just giving that background to kind of ease us into the conversation, because I can't talk about something if I haven't experienced it myself. I can't talk about something if I can't talk about something I don't know about, you know? And every topic I have on this channel isn't necessarily something I have 100% experience in, but this definitely is. The regulation actually is allowing yourself to feel emotions and then choosing to manage those emotions in real time. And that is a skill. That is a whole different set of things that you're learning to do. Because like everyone else, we're reactive, and it's not easy to manage your emotions whenever you are emotionally stimulated, whenever you are emotional. You know, I think everybody can understand that. Whenever you're emotional, it's not easy to regulate your emotions, which is why I said this is a skill, because it's something that you have to be taught. I was taught in the form of isolation. I was, like I said, I genuinely was in timeout in ISS and OSS a lot. So that was the time that I had, those times were given to me to punish me, but also it forced me to reflect on my behavior and what resulted in my suspension or isolation, however that manifested for the day. Because sometimes it could be something like I was, you know, after, like, I went to the Boys and Girls Club and I would be in trouble with like the counselors there for something. It wouldn't necessarily be like I stole something from a store. I wasn't a criminal. I was just like constantly doing things, I guess, that were in need of, hey, you need to go think about what you just did. And I actually am thankful for a lot of that now. I'm thankful that I got corrected as a child, because those same skills stuck with me. And in the past year, I have recognized that I've used those skills probably more than I ever have. And as I get older, I recognize the need for the skill of regulation. Regulation is not being calm, because being calm is part of it, but that is not what it is. Like I said, it is actively recognizing your emotional state and choosing to express that in the most appropriate way. Emotional regulation does not stop you from reaching those emotional states. What it does is it allows you to get back to your stable state, to where your baseline actually is, because you don't, like everyone else, we don't exist in states of high emotional range. We are not built for that, you know. And if you are existing in that state, a lot of times you're on medication as well, because there needs to be a baseline. That's the point of medication, is to give the brain, the body a baseline. And I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I also am someone who genuinely values human life. And I don't want to be too controversial with this, but I want to make content like this to be another form of therapy. And I think if everyone practiced these things, I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm kind of ranting right now, but I think if everyone practiced these things, we would find that more people would be off of medication. We would find more people having the skills that they would need to be able to, you know, talk themselves off of ledges that a lot of times we go to the doctor to do. And if you are in therapy or on medication, there's no shame in your game. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I would just, if it was me, I would definitely say, hey, I don't want to be on medication. I don't even like taking allergy medication. Like, I believe that I believe that the human body is trying its hardest to operate. I believe that our brains are trying really hard to make sure that we're okay. I believe that the human body is trying everything in its possible power to survive. And we don't do necessarily the right things to help our brain and help our body. That was that I deviated right there. But back to it, the definition of regulation is, like I said, just your ability to go back to baseline after being really, really high or low. You know, just not allowing that highness or lowness to define you, whether that be a breakup or a job raise. You cannot let any situation define you. You cannot let something that puts you on a really, really high emotional run be the thing that is like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I do. No, it's what you're capable of whenever you focus over a period of time. And failure is not who you are. Being, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna use a failed relationship for an example. That is not a definition, it's data. Any type of failure is not definition, it's data. Just like success is not definition, it is data. I believe that the successes of a person are signs of what they're capable of, like I just said, and I believe that the deficits of a person are data to what they could work on. And also, when it comes to relationships, that example can be a little shaky because it takes two to tango. So it's not all one person that makes it or breaks it. And so there's just no reason for, you know, situations that definitely take two people to derail us so much. And as you can see, that happens a lot. As a woman, I know that, I have battled that. Another thing that I have battled that has called and demanded me to regulate myself is understanding how I react to failed relationships. And it occurred to me after one of them that I don't need to let someone that I didn't know prior to us dating be the reason that I define myself as a failure. This makes no sense. Inherently, it makes no sense. And though relationships are beautiful and purposeful and wonderful, they cannot define you. So there's that. You might be wondering, what does that look like in everyday life? It's really common. Some examples are, I'm looking down at my notes, by the way. Some examples are needing constant reassurance, constant contact, people that you are not in relationship with. Like, context matters here. If you're in a romantic relationship, you got to talk to your partner. But I'm talking about for someone who is not that. So 99.9% of people to you. If I met you and I just constantly needed you to talk to me every day for me to believe that we were friends, that would be a high expectation. And that would also be a sign of dysregulation, because that is not allowing a natural flow of how we both communicate. Maybe you're not someone who wants to talk every day, which actually is normal and healthy. I can't project my expectation of friendship on you and expect you to meet that. That's not fair. And if I were to do that, that would be me breaking your boundaries. That would be me, you know, infringing upon what you like to do. And that is putting pressure on a relationship. What else? Someone whose mood swings, someone whose mood swings like on minor inconveniences. Yeah, those people tend to lack regulation, because minor inconveniences are like, they're only likely 24 hours out of a 24-hour day. Minor inconveniences could be someone cutting you off in traffic, the light turning red right before you were gonna go through it, I don't know, getting pulled over. Inconveniences are out of our control. So someone who's really thrown off by inconveniences you have to regulate, because inconveniences are far too frequent for us to not be able to regulate from them. So people who need daily check-ins, that kind of goes with like the needing constant reassurance or contact. Long emotional spills and calls, someone who like every time you guys talk it has to be like woo-woo or like boo-hoo, like it's just always something and it's a lot. That is a sign of emotional dysregulation, because think about your friendships with your friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, some conversations are 5 minutes. With my absolute best friends, some conversations are 5 minutes, some conversations are 5 hours. Some conversations, and that's usually in person, but on the phone, we can get up there. Like, me and my besties, we get up to talk on the phone for hours. But every conversation isn't like that. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't need to be. Sometimes I just want to call to get some advice about something. Sometimes I just want to know what they ate for dinner. Sometimes I just want them to know what I ate for dinner. And that's that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no need for it to always be a long, drawn out thing. That's a sign of emotional dysregulation. The last thing I'm going to put here is someone who's sensitive to delayed response. And this is really common. And I think social media has really, really thrown a wrench in things, because people get sensitive to the fact that people are on their phone but not texting them back. And it's like, this is where we get into the area of entitlement. And I'm deviating a little bit here, but just bear with me. We get into the area of entitlement a little bit whenever we expect people to respond to us just because we texted them, instead of appreciating that they respond at all. And the phones, the creation of a telephone has really kind of disrupted that, because we don't value the fact that somebody responded in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Like, a person is not entitled to respond to you just because they saw your text. And if we're being honest, most people don't respond as soon as they see the text. I haven't had my read receipts on in years, because if I did, I wouldn't have any friends. Everyone would think I was ignoring them. In a real conversation, in real everyday life, like prior to phones, you may not have something to say. Like, you may not have something to say immediately after. We know this in conversation. There's times in conversation where someone says something and it could be either a terrible point or phenomenal point, and it just results in silence. Or the same thing happens, you know, over text. And phones are not a good medium for communication, long story short. And so someone who doesn't recognize that and really, really reacts to that, that's a little more nuanced and understandable, but it's also a sign of dysregulation. The next thing I'm going to pivot to here is why I think so many adults lack regulation, because that is a common theme that I'm seeing. And for the most part, I actually think it's because we're just not taught it. And I think society rewards immediacy. So if you were raised in a family where you were not taught emotional regulation, and honestly, it's not something that my parents set me down and were like, hey, this is emotional regulation. It was demonstrated for me by my mother and my father. They are not perfect people, but they definitely demonstrated that whenever I needed to sit down and think about what I did. That is emotional regulation. Sit down and think about what you did. Like telling kids to go sit a timeout, that is a form of making the child regulate. I do think it was overkill for me, but I literally cannot even say anything other than thank you at this point, because the amount of people that I've met who lack enough regulation to really have adult conversation and relationship. And I don't mean sexual, I don't mean romantic, I literally mean platonic. When I say relationship, for the most part in this video, I do mean platonic. The amount of people that I met who lack kind of the muscle to do that, it really branches back to this regulation thing. If you were raised in a house where it was not demonstrated for you, and whenever someone got really, really when someone got really, really wound up, when someone was angry, if they didn't properly diffuse those emotions and they released them, or they picked up a bottle, or they rolled something up, or they lashed out on their kids or lashed out on a person physically, you will learn emotional regulation through that way. So you're gonna learn emotional regulation. You're gonna learn emotional regulation no matter what. But how you learn it is, one, subconscious, and two, very, very, very important. Because we don't necessarily realize until we're older, you know, how we metabolize energy, and how we deal with anger, and how we deal with sadness, and how we deal with grief. And that matters. The small things are what make up a relationship. So like the example I kind of gave earlier, if I just met you and I'm constantly texting you, I'm constantly needing reassurance, that's giving codependency. That's giving that I need a lot. And really something that people like is knowing that another person is stable, and they can choose to talk to them, they can choose to go to them without feeling responsible for them. It's important to be regulated, because another person will feel responsible for your mental health and emotional being if you are not. And that puts pressure on any successful relationship, platonic, romantic, you name it, familial, you name it. As we get older, it is our responsibility to take our own traumas, stresses, stressors, whatever, and do the right thing with that. Metabolize that productively. That is an adult responsibility that a lot of adults are lacking. And in a world where the suicide rate and depression and anxiety medication is getting dealt out like candy, I think this is really important. And I also am rather confident that those things are directly correlated.
Anyway, you can catch me any day, sipping Hennessy, and my peeps get plenty of. In many ways,